In 2018, if you didn't know who Trippie Redd was, you weren't paying attention. This kid from Canton, Ohio had face tattoos, a sound nobody could copy, and a voice that somehow made heartbreak feel cool. He was everywhere at one point. Playlists, interviews, beef with everybody, dating all these celebrities. He was the moment. So how does somebody go from that to basically invisible nowadays? And that's what we're going to get into today. And honestly, the answer is more interesting than you think. Because when you're looking at Trippie Redd's career, it's not about just bad music. It's about what happens when an artist becomes so tied to a specific era that when the era ends, they also end with it. To understand where Trippie went wrong, you have to understand why he mattered in the first place. Now picture this. It's 2016, 2017, SoundCloud rap is taking over. Kids are uploading raw, emotional, lo-fi music from their bedrooms and racking up millions of plays overnight. No label, no budget, just, living off good vibes, some good dope, and a good Wi-Fi connection. Trippie fit perfectly into that world. He wasn't the best rapper technically, never was, and probably never will be, and he'd probably tell you that himself though. But he had something most rappers don't have, a feeling. When you put on A Love Letter to You, you felt it. It was sad, melodic, raw. It sounded like a teenager going through his first heartbreak and not knowing how to handle it. Which, to be fair, is exactly what it was. While all this is happening and Trippie Redd is going up, then came the XXXTentacion situation. Now look, that whole chapter is complicated for a lot of reasons, but what it did for Trippie's visibility was undeniable. The beef, the back and forth, the drama, it kept his name in everybody's mouth at exactly the right time. In the internet era, attention is currency, and Trippie was rich as shit. By 2018, he had a top 10 album. A lot of people forget about that. He also had a deal with 10K Projects and a fan base that genuinely wrote for him. He wasn't just a SoundCloud rapper anymore. He was a legitimate star. While I still reminisce with Trippie during 2016 through 2018, I'd say his best years on paper are probably 2019 to 2021. He had mainstream visibility, consistent releases, and his name carried a lot of weight. Hate Me with Lil Durk, which is actually one of my favorite songs, like newer songs of his. I know they're not new now, but it's a good song. But I think that song really showed that he can make a proper crossover record. Trip at Night had moments that reminded people why they liked him in the first place. At the time, he was dating Coi Leray, which kept him in the blogs constantly. He was doing features with big names. From the outside, everything looked fine. But here's the thing about peaks. They're hard to see when you're in them. And looking back, this was the period where the cracks started forming underneath all the noise. His music was still getting streams, but it wasn't creating moments anymore. You know how some songs just stop time? You're excited to see them live in show? Like, you remember exactly where you were when you first heard them. A Love Letter to You Too did that for me at least. But his 2020 and 2021 releases didn't do that for me or a lot of his core fan base. He was still showing up, but he wasn't showing out anymore. And in this industry, there's a massive difference between the two. 2022 is where this all gets real. Something shifted, and it wasn't just one big moment. It was a slow leak. The kind where you don't notice it until the tire is completely flat. First, the music. Trippie started experimenting more, which I think is fine at a certain rate. Rock influences, different sounds, trying to evolve, and honestly, I saw the ambition, but the execution kept missing. The albums were getting longer, more bloated, and listeners were having a harder time finding the thread. When you drop a 20-track album and people can only name one song off of it, that's a problem. Then came the Kanye situation. Trippie publicly went at Kanye on social media. And look, a lot of people have opinions on Kanye, but the way it came across felt more like clout chasing than a genuine grievance. It didn't add anything to his legacy. It just made him look like he was reaching for attention. And that became kind of the pattern for Trippie. The social media moments started overshadowing the music. The beefs, the posts, the drama. It felt less like an artist controlling their narrative and more like someone desperate to stay relevant. Meanwhile, the artists who came up after him completely took over his lane. Playboi Carti evolved his sound into something polarizing but undeniably his own. Lil Uzi Vert keeps pushing boundaries, even in the Big 26, and even new artists who were clearly influenced by Trippie started outperforming him. He built a lane and then watched other people drive further down than he ever did, which in a sense maybe is good and maybe that's what he wanted. But by 2024, his name would come up mostly in whatever happened to conversations. Not because he disappeared, he's still releasing music here and there, but the cultural weight was just gone. And in this industry, once you lose that, it's incredibly hard to get back. Here's the thing about Trippie Redd though. I think he gets overlooked in all of this. He was genuinely talented, still is, and he wasn't a gimmick. A Love Letter to You still hits today in the Big 26, bro. That shit's real. Like, I was listening to Overdose the other day, Love Scars, all those are classics. But talent alone doesn't sustain a career. You have to evolve in a way that feels authentic, not forced. You gotta create those new and polarizing moments, not just content. And you have to know the difference between staying in the conversation and actually mattering to it. Trippie got caught in the SoundCloud era's biggest trap. His whole identity was built around a feeling that was specific to a moment in time. When that moment passed, he didn't have a next chapter ready. And that's honestly the lesson for any artist watching this. You could start a wave, but if you don't know how to surf on that shit gonna go right over you, bro. And hey, man, there's still a chance. Don't get discouraged by these motherfuckers that fall off, bro. Shout out to all the artists in here. Thanks for watching, y'all. That's my little video for today. If you liked it, let me know, man. I'll see you in the next one.